Our distinguished panel here. So we've got Dr. Brian Nichol is going to be moderating this panel. We've got Custom Cannabis, we got Buffalo Co., we got Robert DeBin, who's head of the ACIA, which is our partner in putting this on. That's the trade association for the cannabis industry, and also Dr. Cliff Peck. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the doctor.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, well, we do have a panel, and these are people in the cannabis industry and medicine and so forth, experts in the field. Kind of interesting to get their point of view on things. Colin, over at Custom Cannabis in Alexander, Arkansas, nice dispensary. Get out there and check it out if you can. I always like to ask this of my dispensary people, I know the answer. What's the most common question you hear from patients about cannabis when they walk into the dispensary?
Well, new patients are always going to have that. It's kind of typical. You see it a lot throughout the day. It's 90% of it is, well, what's the highest thing you have in THC?
What's the highest THC? Oh, my God. You hear that all the time in dispensaries. Now, you think that's the most important question patients can ask you?
Absolutely not, but absolutely is, because if you're knowledgeable on cannabinoids and the way everything works, it's easy to go, hey, I can sell you anything in the world you want. If it's high THC you want, I can definitely get that for you. Now, if you want an amazing effect, if you want an amazing medication, let's talk about some other stuff we can get you linked up with. You know what I mean? Let's find exactly what we're trying to treat. The reason why you're looking for something that's high THC is because it's the only metric patients really can look at and go, oh, yeah, here it is. Yeah, obviously more is obviously better. And we've known in the industry for a while now that that's just simply not the case.
And as you can see, Colin's a believer in the entourage effect right here. He knows what's important on things. Cliff, let me ask you a little something here, sir. I got you on the next one here. First one, everybody wants to know. Cannabinoid safe for pets?
You bet.
Okay, good. We got that out of the way.
You bet.
What about THC? Should you use THC in your animals?
Yeah, well, that's a funny thing you asked that. Yes. I mean, it'd be funny in that people would think about THC for themselves, but as far as pets, it works great in pets. We do more CBD oil. I cannot write a prescription for the THC cannabinoids.
How your dog gets the THC doesn't want to know, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we carry a lot of different type of, well, not a lot. In the cane, we carry what Buffalo Co. makes, and the reason we do is it's another avenue for us to go down. A lot of our patients that are taking that are geriatric patients or patients that are in pain. It is a lot better on their system than the regular non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, which block prostaglandins, do other things. They have other side effects from the stomach to the kidneys, liver, all that. And this is, in my opinion, a much, much safer pain remedy that you can give the animals. And here again, it depends on the pain, if it's an acute pain or chronic pain or how long they've had, all that good stuff. But typically, we also will use this in seizure pets. It has a calming effect to it. And I have a lot of clients that are using it on storm anxiety patients, the pets that get really nervous when the thunderstorm comes, or separation anxiety, that they get revved up when their owners leave. And they've had really good success. And then the safety margin on it is really huge. There's been a whole lot of, in fact, there's a study going on right now. University of Kentucky is finally doing a big study on it, which is a practitioner. Me and my colleagues have been asking the American Veterinary Medical Association to, sponsor some research so that we can have some sound numbers. We have just pretty much arbitrarily come up with some dosages, milligrams of strength, and I found that the safety margin is really big, and so I've been using it, what I call to effect, till you get your desired effect on the animal that you're trying to treat. That said, there are people that say, oh, well, I don't want my dog being all stoned out and waking up and eating the house down, and that's not what we're seeing with it. We see a gradual onset and a gradual offset of the control of the problem we're trying to fight. Now, in dogs that are painful, We want to keep them, get them up to a plateau, and keep them there so that they're pain-free. And now it's gotten a lot easier with the different strengths of the CBD oils that are out there. I have had some of my clients that have licenses has called me and say, hey, look, it's helping, but my dog's at end stage. It's like 17 years old, completely paralyzed in the back end. Can I give it some of my stuff that's got the THC? And I have had several that have done it and then told me later about the positive effects that they have seen from it. Conversely, on another note, we started using it on some cancer patients as well, not just for relief of discomfort and pain, but there has been some evidence saying that different types of cancers respond to the cannabinoids as far as stopping the cell growth of the cancer. It's not going to do anything to shrink the cancer, but it's going to help prevent it from spreading. I mean, there's tons of research out there on the human side. The animal side they're a little slow to get going, which is really surprising for me, but it's been out there, been on talks at the last several conventions, last 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, excuse me, 5 years they've been discussing it. And it's now finally, they've got some big universities that are doing studies in it. So there's good news on the horizon. I hope we have some scientific proof and numbers that we can really plug stuff together and say, look, this is what it's doing and it's working. So I know it works for us.
Well, they all want research. Everybody likes that. But I will say, Dr. Peck, your advice on our German Shepherd, her hip pain's doing a lot better. And finally, she's not barking at the sky every time the thunder starts up. So it does help.
Yeah, it does.
Dena Rhoads from Buffalo Company. Dena, Buffalo Company, I think it was Arkansas's first CBD company. They pride themselves on a high quality product. Would you tell us a little bit about the company, how it came to be, and how you guys produce the Cadillac level product that you do?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. We started the company the minute that the Farm Bill passed in 2018. So, and very excited to be able to put our hands on the products, manufacture the products. We worked with some farmers that actually are sustainable farmers, which means that more than just organic, they also take into account how they affect the environment around them. And also from day one, quality was our number one, and efficacy, how well it works in your body, was our number two. And those things, regardless of what we've done since, are always our number 1 and 2. We start with where we source our hemp products from, the hemp plant itself. We take an extract from these guys, and then it comes here to Little Rock to our manufacturing lab. And from there, we add in other organic ingredients. And we also, with many of our products, pull in other plants besides just hemp. We'll bring in organic essential oils to target specific conditions, and terpenes now as well. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
The reason I use their company, you can find CBD oil at a truck stop. And you can find it in the grocery stores, some of them for your pet. But the reason we use them is they have laboratory standards that they stick to. It's not just, we're going to throw a little CBD oil, let's call it CBD oil. And I've had several clients say, well, my animal's on it. And I said, what kind's it on? Well, it's some that I got X and X. And I'll say, look, just try this. Just try this and see if there's a difference. And 9.5 times out of 10, there's a major difference. Their stuff that they use, that we use in animals, called indicaine, is by far better than any of the other ones that I have seen out there. So I'm not that I'm putting in a plug for them, but I am. But that's why I use them, is because they have a standard that they go by that's scientifically based. So
thanks for the plug.
He wasn't plugging them, but it is good product. He was always
you just don't go. It's just like, you aren't going to just go out and try and treat yourself on the street and stuff that's not something to do with it. Treat yourself and stuff that you don't know what's in it.
Well, it is a big problem. Over the years, I've had patients paying $100 for bottles of vegetable oil, thinking that there's CBD in there, buying bunk product.
How many of you in here use CBD or have? How many have tried it and it didn't work? Mm-hmm. Yep. My mother tried to buy what she thought was CBD bath bombs at TJ Maxx, by the way. She's like, these are only $2, Dena. And I was like, yeah, Mom, that's not what it says it is. Okay. So anyway, and yes, we are very strict about our testing. We want to make sure that we always maintain this level of quality. And we welcome also other Arkansans that are manufacturing CBD oil that are also of quality standards. We like to help them as well as ourselves, because that's really, you know, our biggest challenge is the gas station CBD products that are not really what they say they are.
And that's actually one of the breakout essentials, the taste of the entourage effect. A couple purposes in that. It's for people who haven't tried CBD. It gives you a chance to try it on, see how well it works. For still those people that were holding their hands up, they've tried CBD and it didn't work. You probably bought bunk product. You get a chance to try what we know is legitimate product to experience what real CBD does. Mr. DeBin, Robert DeBin here, he wears a lot of different hats in the cannabis industry. Really appreciate the Arkansas Cannabis Industry Association sponsoring this, as well as some of the card costs for patients. They have a firm commitment to medical cannabis in the state of Arkansas, obviously. Robert, with everything changing now, what do you think the industry expects as far as cannabis products that patients are going to be interested in the future? Certainly flower is the most popular one, but we're seeing changes in the marketplace. What do you guys think things are heading in the future here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Doc. And yeah, flower is, and I believe will be king for quite some time. However, we are seeing some growth in the other, manufactured product categories. But with the education that we're able to start doing, and first of all, thank you for all that you do for the medical cannabis patients and industry here. I mean, the session prior to this, and from an educational standpoint, I believe is turning the conversation away from what is the highest THC and more into, well, how do I want to feel, right? So we're taking a much closer look at terpene profiles and really just quality of the product rather than what's the highest percentage of THC in it. It's kind of like equated to go into the liquor store. I don't really look at the alcohol content. I'm not buying Everclear when I go down the street. And so I think that as the market continues to evolve and patients become more educated, we're going to see more of a switch to how I want to feel.
So as far as we come back to terpenes, always on this, Robert, and I do know Natural State Medicinals, jumping over to another hat that you wear, has been very, very motivated, and they really understand the medical benefits of cannabis and are producing terpene profiles on their stuff all the time. And I really look forward to what you guys are going to be producing in the future as you get things dialed in for specific effects, because I also agree. I think that's where the future of cannabis is heading to. Certainly do. Okay, go back to Colin here. If unless you got something else there, Robert, are you good on that? Okay. Colin, okay, we talked about the THC thing. Now, we talked about flower being the most popular product there is right now. Are you seeing a change in what the patients coming into the dispensary are looking for? And what do you think that consumer demand is going to be for specific products in the future from a consumer side of things, because you're close to them?
That's really hard to say because the marketplace is constantly evolving. It's constantly shifting to other things. Anytime someone pops up with a new idea, people are quick to try it out and see what the fuss is all about. But, everyone's pretty well accurate. Flower is king for now. But we are seeing, a really heavy trend in people like stuff on the go. People like things that are faster acting. People like things that are, what can I stick in my purse and take with me? What's discreet? So obviously cartridges were huge. Pod systems coming out, also massive because it's an even more discreet way to do things.
Yeah, like those Bellis pods. I see a lot of people with those, and they're really cool little discrete device. I like those.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
They're so it's a unique system where you have, it basically looks like a nicotine vape, but there's a little battery. It's no buttons. It's all draw activated. You have a pod that's filled with either a distillate or a raw oil, and it's just something you can kind of keep handy on you at all times. And if you need to medicate yourself either on the go or away from home, you have something there at your disposal where you're not having to, do all the things you normally do whenever you have flower or any other kind of thing. So it's another portable way. Obviously, we see a surge in edibles are a massive marketplace. Everyone loves gummies. Everyone likes to eat. So anything that's delicious and also helps medicate is right up a lot of people's alleys. Obviously, tinctures are going to be some of the most effective ways to medicate. It's a little harder to dose those on the go. But it's interesting to see the shift, though. So I think a lot of things that are coming out, if it's a faster acting or something that's a lot more portable, is where a lot of people are absolutely loving. So.
Well, and perhaps as people, they are most familiar with flower as they get used to using, get familiar with it. Perhaps they start looking for some other ways to use it. And as people get more sophisticated, branch out into some different ways of using it. Dr. Peck, a question I've heard before from from patients. I don't know why they're asking me. I'm not a veterinarian, but I had a patient call me one time and said, "Oh, my dog ate my whole pack of gummy bears. What do I do? And is he going to be okay? Do I need to take him to the vet and have his stomach pumped? Oh my God, what do I do?" What's your advice to people that this may happen to? It's a lot more common these days with people using edibles.
It happens all the time. I had a client that I don't believe he had his license, but he made some brownies with something off the street, and his little dachshund ate a whole tray of brownies. And it had been, I don't know, 2 hours before I saw him. And I mean, what we did is we made it the dog vomit, which there wasn't a whole lot that vomited up because the brownies being a sugar base are absorbed really quickly and broken down in the stomach. So, all we did was watch him, gave him some IV fluids and watched him. And typically, usually 12 to 24 hours, depending on the amount that they've consumed. And I'm guessing probably the concentration of THC now that I know more about it. But it's very common. We see it when I was working in the emergency field, we saw it a lot, and we used to just freak out about it. And anymore in the last 10 years, it's more common. I see it more common. And typically the dogs are just really chilled to sleep. They'll sleep for 10, 12, 14, 16 hours, and I'm talking deep sleep. And then they wake up, and I'll just have some food ready because they're going to be hungry. And they eat afterwards, and you kind of have to limit that because they'll overeat, and you don't want the byproducts of that too. But that's typically what I see, and in 36 hours, they're back to normal typically. So treat them like you did your old college roommate, essentially, when they eat. Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know that your dog's not going to die from accidentally eating your stuff.
One die of that at all.
Dena, Buffalo Company at our Taste of the Entourage Effect, we are going to be sampling people out CBD as well as CBG cannabinoid. Now that it's becoming available more and more, CBD manufacturers are combining CBG with CBD. Buffalo Company does this. What do you think are the most appropriate uses for your particular CBG Plus product? What do you find CBD and CBG most useful for?
We're getting a lot of fantastic results and feedbacks from our customers on one of our products that we call CBG Plus. So we've taken the whole plant full spectrum, is half of the tincture, and the other half is an additional CBG boost to it. And the feedback and by the way, I am not a medical doctor. So the feedback that I'm hearing is huge impact on inflammation and pain. Those are the two areas that I'm getting the most feedback on. We also do have it where, you can just buy your own CBG that's just straight CBG. But I'm getting much better results from the combination of all of the cannabinoids that are in our full spectrum with the additional CBG.
Yeah, that's been my experience too with using CBG after it started to become available, is when it's used in combination with CBD is when you see the maximum benefit to it. One of the things about having a separate CBG tincture is, at least how I do it in some of my patients, is I can modify the CBD to CBG ratio. Some of them might have a lower requirement for CBG or a higher. And separate tinctures do allow that. Again, try it on today if you're going to be around this afternoon so you can see what CBG really is like. Robert, let's see. We wanted to talk a little bit about the different genetics and strains that Natural State. Are you comfortable telling us what may be coming in soon or how you do the whole process? Because I understand there's going to be some new flower coming in.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about the process. There's some competitors in the room as well, so we're not going to give out too many secrets. But just kind of the process of bringing in new genetics into the state and into into a grow. We get questions a lot about when are we going to see this particular strain? When are more strains coming in? To kind of answer that question, we're always hunting for new genetics. I mean, around the clock. It's not a straightforward process. A lot of those are found by popping seeds. And just to kind of give you an idea of how that works, let's say we have a 10-pack of seeds. One in particular that we're working on right now is called Endgame, which is an ethos genetic. And so out of those 10 seeds, we pop 10. Let's say they all are successful. Half are males, half are females. So we end up with 5, candidates for a strain. Out of those 5 phenotypes, they're going to express different attributes, each one of those seeds. Even though they came from the same plant, they really have some different traits. Some will be different colors. They certainly have different effects to them and different notes. And so, like we'll end up right now, we have, I think out of those 5 of the end game, we had 3 good contenders. So we're, doing R&D on that currently. So we have end game Pheno 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to run through those a few times to figure out which one we like the best and what we want to bring to the market. In addition to that, you have to be careful anytime you're bringing in genetics into a facility, whether it's clones or seeds, because they might not adjust to the environment. There's a lot of different ways to grow cannabis, a lot of different stress factors. And so when you do bring in a new strain, if you were to go hard and heavy from the get-go and populate a whole room with it or half of a room, you actually put the rest of your crop at risk. So what we have to do is go through several iterations of harvesting that specific genetic and letting it kind of adapt to the environment before we can really populate a good amount of it. And that's kind of why you'll see, you might see, oh, this dispensary has this one strain. Why can't we get it over here in this part of the state? And the answer to that is we might have harvested 3 pounds off of 3 plants. And so that's just kind of the first harvest. We certainly intend on propagating that in larger quantities as it adapts.
One thing you mentioned, I'm not too sure if everybody's familiar with it. You talk about, we get all these different seeds and they do grow different plants. When you have your 3 contenders that you're looking at on the end game, and you select one that's good, how do you make that plant produce seeds every time so you can plant new ones that are going to be the same variety? Is that how it's done?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a really good question. So we typically don't grow from seed. Like we really just use seeds to find new strains, new phenotypes. Once we identify a good pheno, what we'll do is we'll clone that plant. So when you clone it, you take a clipping of some vegetative growth and dip it in a rooting hormone, a root stimulator, and then put it in a substrate. And then that is going to be a genetic copy of that DNA. So you're going to have the same, a lot more consistent results from a clone than you would from a seed. Again, there's a lot of variety in the different traits that phenotypes will exhibit when you grow from seed.
So it is really by you cloning from a particular one that you like, that you're able to produce a consistent product for patients and quantity. Something that's very important to understand, because I used to think it was just the seeds. They just keep planting the seeds, growing plants, and every time. The cloning thing, very interesting. Maybe we can talk about it another time, Robert, as far as letting people know the whole kind of steps you take in growing cannabis. I don't have time for it today, but that's very interesting, Robert. Thanks. Let's see, Colin. Now, talking about cultivation here, I know you guys have an in-house grow. How are things going with that?
Actually, it's very interesting to see. In-house grow is going, obviously, it's going pretty well. But it's always a growing process. Like, you got growing pains trying to figure out what strains work, what conditions you've got going, trying to maintain a facility to keep everything proper as far as growing parameters. But so far it's going pretty well. We've learned a lot. There's some things we'd like to improve on, some things we've kind of learned. We're about 3-4 harvests deep in now, so we've got quite a few things on our belt. And the biggest thing is always don't bite off more than you can chew, right? So we're kind of trying to figure out where that happy medium is, where everybody's kind of happy with what we're kind of putting out, and trying to make sure we can at least make the best thing we can for our patients.
Well, now that you guys are getting a little bit of experience underneath your belt, probably starting off, I'm going to guess, clones you got from the cultivators to kind of get your chops. Are you guys looking at expanding into some different, perhaps, chemovars, different cultivar strains of cannabis?
Always looking. We definitely have some ideas for where we'd like to go as far as expanding our cultivation, not just possibly making, not just flower itself, but maybe a couple byproducts of the process itself. So we're pretty excited to see where that kind of takes us.
Well, I'll be excited to see what Custom Cannabis is doing. You got new management in place. They're taking it in a new direction and be really focused on the future. I look forward to seeing what's going on with you guys. Let's see, Cliff, looks like CBD in particular can be useful for a lot of different conditions for pets. What's the difference between a pet endocannabinoid system and a human one, and does that affect our dosage choices in these animals?
That's that's what we're striving for. I think weight is going to be a problem, and I think metabolism is going to be a big issue too. So, for a comparison's sake, there's an anti-inflammatory that we use in horses, and we use the same drug in dogs. A dog, for a 50 to 100-pound dog, would take a size of 227 milligram tablet. But for a horse, okay, they can only have a quarter of that in a 24-hour period. So there's a lot of variance in cytochrome with the liver enzymes that break stuff down to make it work in the body. And so I can't help but be led to think that there's going to be a similar type variance. I know that there's a company out of Texas now that's making a paste for horses. I've petitioned them to send me some so that we can kind of look at it. And I know there's a laboratory here in town that will break it down and tell us what's in it. They don't want to do that. I don't know why, but they don't want to send me stuff. And even in the olden days, I mean, like in the 1800s, and out in the West, there have been several accounts of Indians and cowboys that would treat lameness problems in the horses with hemp. And I can't help but believe that it was because of the CBD product that's in it. Now, the THC, I don't know that I'd want a horse to have too much of that if I was relying on it on a day-to-day basis. But say this, I think there's going to be a lot of variables right now of what concentration, when this study comes out from Kentucky, I hope that it's got a whole lot of guidelines that will answer that very question to the T. Man, right now, I don't know.
Well, in the meantime, my dog needs some CBD. What's a good starting dose for your pets?
We usually use 25 milligrams per about 50 pounds, and we go up to, I mean, the indicane's like 250, 500, and 1,000. And so I had a guy that had a dog that weighed roughly 70 pounds, and he was getting 1,500 milligrams twice a day. So there's a big range. Some of the literature says 2 milligrams per kilogram body weight. So that's basically a milligram per pound of body weight. So, I mean, they're different things, and I think it's going to depend on where you get it from, too.
Well, I think we practice the same way we got different patients. We practice the same way. You start with a low dose, move up.
That's what we do. Mm-hmm.
On most, at least on humans, if I'm looking at longer-lived symptoms like arthritis, I'll tell people, why don't you stay in that dose for 4-7 days to see how it works before it reaches maximum effectiveness as far as arthritis, for instance. See the same thing in animals, too?
Exactly. Okay. That's exactly what we do. Yes, because here again, animals in general will hide their pain. It's all that whole survival of the fittest thing. The lions always pick out the weakest zebra or wildebeest or whatever, and it's because they can't only hold the pain, they can conceal the pain for so long. And it's the same thing in dogs. Dogs are a pack animal, and think about wolves and coyotes when, a member of the pack's not doing good, the pack turns on and kills it. So dogs in nature, dogs, cats are a whole different thing, but in dogs, they will hide pain, and then all of a sudden, and one of my clients will come in and say, well, fine, can't walk. And that's just because they hide their pain. They're way tougher than we are. There's not an emotional connection for dogs with pain and motion. So I have dogs with broken legs come in happy wagging their tail, their legs just doing like this, flopping back and forth. It's like, how can that be? And I said that to say that, you know, it's going to vary from pet to pet, but for the most part, dogs are going to be kind of stoic, and when it comes out and that they tell that they're in pain, you know, that's when you start with a low dose, and then if you can make that pain go away with low dose, chances are, you know, it's still going to be hurt. You just don't know based on, for the layperson to look at it. I mean, I can look and I can tell by respiration rate, heart rate, and different things, mannerisms of the animal if they're hurt or not. But for the layperson, it's just going to be if the dog's uncomfortable, won't settle and gets rested. But again, the CBD helps with the pain factor in that, and well help them relax.
So just like with people, start low, go slow is Cliff's advice in that one. Let's see, Dena, I got a question for you, and this is one I know you've been wanting. As far as Buffalo Company, been doing a lot on the research and development side recently. Why don't you talk about a couple of the new products that you've developed for Buffalo Company?
Like the terpenaires?
Well, I'm thinking about the one I used to right before my lecture here to take care of any nerves.
So you've heard Dr. Nichol talk about terpenes, and that you look for them in the profiles of the products that you're buying if you can get that out of the test results, and that they have different capabilities and impacts on your body. We are now taking terpenes and a carrier oil, MCT, and that's it. Just the terpenes with the carrier oil, and we are putting them in nasal inhalers. Like Vicks nasal inhalers.
Yeah, like one of these here, yeah.
Well, they're also discreet, and you can carry them around and, you know. Yeah, go ahead, right? So, and so whenever you need it, you take it. So we have them formulated right now for 3 different targets. We call them targets. So one is we call Reboot, because I have a software engineering background and computer science. So this one is when you are starting to have the feeling of an anxiety panic attack. There you go. And it's like pushing the reboot button on your brain, and you don't go down the rabbit hole, or you stop going down the rabbit hole. That's really, yeah. And in fact, even here, you know, people get nervous if they're speaking. Several people here today have come by and said, I need a reboot. I'm about to speak, because I don't want to be nervous or anxious about it.
I find it particularly useful. The vast majority of my patients with PTSD, when they're having a panic attack, you use some of the terpenes that are in the Reboot inhaler. Almost all of them see between a 20% and complete resolution of their anxiety symptoms. Lasts about 15 minutes to an hour, about the length of a panic attack. Very, very useful for that purpose, Dena.
So we have another one. The name is Chillax. Can you guess what it does? It's good after work. I wouldn't suggest doing a lot of that during work. And then we have another one that we did formulate a couple of months ago in the mood. So you can guess what that one helps you get in the mood for.
You want to talk about the product development phase of that and testing, or are we going to just?
Well, you know that, you know, which is also interesting, because we do with our products, we want them clinically tested. That means patients are testing them, not just here in the family. And so it is kind of interesting when you come up with a product like that, you know, to be able, well, I'm of the older generation, so we usually don't talk about things like that. And to actually have the conversation to say, okay, this is what we expect, you know, and how you get the reports back. Did it meet those needs, or did it change, et cetera? So, yeah, it's kind of interesting and challenging for me at times to talk about those things.
And if you do want to try out some of these terpenes, I mean, again, I want to pass nasal inhalers around. Right across the hall from Buffalo, the HypnoSensescape machine, we do have it loaded up and able to dispense the terpenes that are in the nasal inhalers. Let you just try it on to see how they actually work for you. So if you're interested in those, give them a try. Well, yeah, we programmed it in yesterday, so you guys didn't have to worry about trying to put condoms over the end of these things. just step across the hall there if you want to try it. We can sample them out to you. Robert, in NSM, of course, really got a lot of respect for you guys. You're always on the cutting edge of research and things. There was a really innovative kind of thing that you came up with, and I think it's terribly misunderstood by the patients based on what I've seen on social media. And that would be some of the pre-packaging you have in these little plastic containers that are kind of funny to open and they're all sealed up. You want to
I think
explain?
you're referring to our cat food cans.
Yes, the cat food cans, as they're not very politely referred to. Really, though, the more I found out about these, I found out that they're really advanced on the technology side. Why don't you explain to people why you guys put them in these ugly little cat food cans and what the advantages are to those on some of your pre-packed products?
Yeah, absolutely. And I never thought that packaging would be such a polarizing kind of topic. Like, there's, I think, half of the consumers hate them and half of the consumers love them. So it's really been difficult to kind of make everybody happy there. But what's neat about these containers is that they're unlike glass, which is porous. These are metal or sometimes plastic cans, and they're sealed with nitrogen, so it preserves the flower. So when a patient opens it, I mean, it's in the exact same state that it was when it was packaged at our facility. And that's the real advantage of having those containers. Now, on the flip side, I don't know how long cannabis is normally sitting there before it gets opened, so there hasn't been a huge need for that. However, it is extremely fresh whenever it's first opened.
So how long do you think, what would typical shelf life on flower, let's say just in a jar out to a dispensary, how long before it's kind of degrading down to where it's a lower tier quality compared to how long would it last in the nitrogen packaging?
I don't recall the exact number, what the shelf life is of once it's in the N2 cans. But after a couple months of being in a jar, without being nitrogen sealed, I think you'd start to see some degradation. But it just depends on how long it's been in that physical container and how airtight that was. There's certainly other ways to preserve that, and especially like when it's stored in bulk, and it could be stored for longer as well. All of our bulk packaging, like when we send out pounds to dispensaries in vacuum seal bags, those are also nitrogen sealed. So the moment that a dispensary is actually opening that pound or that unit is when that starts to age at that point. It's preserved until then.
Well, actually, I didn't know you did that with your bulk stuff, but that's a good move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Try to keep their stuff fresh. Colin, we got processors now coming on the line. They're going to start making product. As far as from a dispensary and patient perspective, do you see any unmet needs with patients, and do you think there's any kind of niches that the processors might be able to fill?
To be honest, I'm not really entirely sure that there really is anything that's, any holes that haven't been filled in already. I think really what it is now is, as far as limitations, as far as stuff like edibles go, right? Obviously, we can't really make them as high dose as some people would like. Obviously, you can always eat more, you can't eat less. But that would be a nice little help if we could. However, there are ways around that, obviously. And there are some supplemental products that, a few people sell that can help bolster those efforts. So I'm not really sure that there's a whole lot that is really missing. Now, if there was any kind of marketplace that was empty, we'd be obviously more than willing to hear anybody out.
So maybe just variety of edibles or something. Sure. But you think all the niches are pretty much, everybody's covering them?
I think there's at least something in everything.
Good. Well, I'm glad we're to that point in the state. Alan, how are we doing on time? We're doing fine? Okay. All right. Yeah, please.
The reason there are some gaps as far as product availability is really that the state is very limited from a regulatory standpoint on what we can actually produce. That's when if you were to compare Arkansas's product, like manufactured product offerings, like with I hate to do this, like let's say our neighbor, Oklahoma, like they have, Lay's infused chips, they have cookies, brownies, like everything under the sun that you could possibly infuse with cannabis is infused with cannabis. We would really like to do that too, but we can't. The regulations and the interpretation of the regulations are rather strict and, to say the least. So really, that's the what holds us back from being able to continue to develop new products in the edible segment.
You foresee, you mentioned the interpretation of the regulations is probably where the rub comes down to that. Do you see the regulators as they're seeing more and more cannabis in Arkansas? And again, they're seeing that the world didn't open up and suck us all in. Are they starting to view it more as the medication it is rather than people just wanting to smoke dope? And are they becoming more and more open, perhaps, to viewing it as the true medication it is?
Sadly, I'd have to say no for the most part. The only way we're going to get that changed is through, some sort of constitutional initiative. And and there's some out there that really fix a lot of the problems that we've had, and these rules and guidelines that we inherited that weren't really set up the way that they should have been.
Well, I know one of the 10 milligram dose limit, it does make it really tough for patients to have high THC requirements to do this on an economical basis. I'm not really talking about the amendments. They are one of the sponsors of the show. It looks like you do kind of address that in the paperwork. Is that correct, Robert?
So the Responsible Growth Initiative, it removes the edible or the dosage cap for medical. It'll still be there for adult use once that takes effect. But it also has language in there to prevent or to allow us to expand the edible offerings to what it should actually be. It also allows pre-rolls, which is
a lot of people want those, that's for sure. But with that, it's. Do you think that having not having a low milligram per serving requirement, you think that's going to bring the price down a little bit as far as for medical patients?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's because right now a lot of patients are kind of stuck doing DIY edibles. Nothing wrong with doing that, but it is kind of complicated and time consuming. A lot of patients don't have access to it. So I do look forward to what you guys are going to be producing in the future on that as the regulations change. All right. You got anything else to add to that, Robin?
No? I don't believe so.
Okay. Let's see. Dena, as far as we kind of touched on some of the problems with CBD, one of the big competitions for you guys is competing against Monk product. The certificate of analysis is what patients have to look at really to decide whether they have legitimate CBD. I don't have one for us to look up here, but if you are looking at some crude CBD that you're getting from the farms in Colorado that source you, what do you look at that to ensure that it's a quality product?
Well, we look at the toxicity reports to make sure there's no heavy metals, toxins in it.
Why is that important with hemp?
Well, because the hemp plant itself naturally pulls toxins out of the soil. So, wait, you better first look at the dirt, right? So you test the soil.
So all the heavy metals get concentrated in the hemp plant that may be in the soil?
Yes, it pulls the metals and toxins out of the ground and into the plant. So another reason why it really matters who you do business with and who you buy from, they really have to be trusted because I cannot reinforce it enough. It's like whether you buy our products or not, just make sure that you're dealing with a reputable company that does have test results that actually show that they're dealing with true quality products without the toxins, without the heavy metals. And also, if they say it has CBD in it, that it actually does have CBD in it. And not hemp seed oil, Mom.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's very important. It's critical.
Well,
it's critical to your overall health. I mean, and it's not regulated. It's very interesting for the hemp side of the equation. The regulation is more about what you say from a marketing standpoint.
Well,
they don't really come and inspect your lab. They don't really come and actually make sure that what you say is in the product and put on the label. They make sure that you say, not FDA approved on the label. They care about that.
That's all they care about.
It's crazy to me.
Well, one of the things
that's
is,
the world that we live in.
I do have, actually, in the Tasty Entourage Act, I found a Buffalo COA. I'm going to go over it and show that.
Oh,
I hope it was a good one for you guys. I'm pretty sure it was.
Sure.
But we'll go over a COA. I'm getting a high sign from Alan over here. Oh, no, it's not.
Hemp is used to clean up superbug sites.
Oh, you're kidding.
Is that pulling up so that's why it's so important.
So they'll plant hemp on contaminated soil just to pull all of the heavy metals and bad stuff out of it and then destroy the hemp. Ooh, what you definitely want to look at your lab on the CBD products, it sounds like. Oh, yeah. No, I did not know that. That's interesting.
So if you've got a plant, the hemp plant has been planted in, let's say, Eastern Arkansas, where they primarily grow cotton and things that are not for oral consumption, and they spray them with defoliants and all those chemicals. That chemical's in the soil, and so the hemp plant will suck that up. And so I can see where that would be a really bad problem if you find it from mom and pop type organizations that have laboratory testing. And you give your animal something that's got a high lead base in it or something, another toxin, that would make it really difficult on that area for trying to smooth that down. A lot of people get their knowledge that we're going to tell us. So that could be a really good problem. So again, that's another very important that you know.
Well, again, it comes down to looking at the laboratory analysis. As far as everything else, you ready here, Alan? Okay, I'm going to start wrapping it up here as I'm getting the high sign. I forgot to wear a watch today, so I don't know what time it is. Let's see here. As far as a couple of things go, Colin, I just want to ask you, until the last year and a half, I guess it is, a lot of dispensaries were carrying CBD flower. I often would recommend CBD flower to my patients. There have been a lot of issues that I'm, quite frankly, am not fully understanding on why it was kind of removed from the state, and it gets to be a little bit hard to come by. Have you found that not having CBD flower available for patients, do you think that's impacted their care at all?
I think it has to some extent. Obviously, the CBD flower packs a lot more cannabinoids together than just a CBD isolate will. So obviously, if you're looking for CBD, most places carry it. Most dispensaries are going to at least carry some form of CBD isolate. But some people, and I know people personally who, exclusively use CBD flower to cut out a lot of the stuff that they were either previously taking or even addicted to kind of get it out of there. And it does kind of harm, I guess, as far as business-wise goes, the dispensaries, because when we're having CBD products come in, obviously, for any dispensary that really cares, we're going to vet the people who are trying to sell us products, right? Because we want to make sure our patients are getting proper care, they're getting proper products that have been evaluated and tested. So if we're going to carry something like a CBD flower, it needs to be a good quality that we can wholeheartedly recommend to patients, right? Because if you lose a patient's trust, you lose them, and they don't want to come back. So with the whole regulatory issue with not being able to carry it, it kind of leads people to go to the wayside to purchase CBD flower, and that can be from shady websites, weird, places on corners and gas stations where they're just like, hey, this has a good profit margin. Here you
CBD
go.
from a super toxic waste site, perhaps. Yes.
Possibly, but you never know. And that's something that's kind of out of our control right now.
So, and I know a lot of patients, and I do recommend it to patients on a regular basis to use CBD flower. So just as with anything else, be sure to vet your sources on that. Cliff, any advice, last bit of advice to patients as far as considering using CBD in your pets? Do you view it like I do, that the low toxicity, you kind of think you do, it sounded like from what you were talking before, kind of tilts the scales towards the direction to go ahead and try it in pets before you start using some of the more commonly like the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications for hip pain you were talking about in your clients? Do you think that these patients, maybe you should try CBD first because of lower toxicity?
I would, yeah. I mean, like I said in the beginning, it's a lot safer on the whole system than, say, a non-steroidal, your aspirins, your ibuprofens, especially acetaminophen, which is not good in animals. I think it's a lot safer thing to go by. And I guess I'm sure it's probably the same for humans in you got people that take physical aspirin twice a day or ibuprofen. That's really hard on the stomach and the liver. And it's the same thing on animals. And we see it routinely. I endoscope animals for stomach ulcers. And dogs get stomach ulcers, so do cats, just like people do. And we see a lot of that. And it goes undiagnosed. They think, oh, my dog's vomiting because he ate something like that. And a lot of times it's not. So if they've got acid reflux from stress and other things. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, I think that'd be a safer first step to go by. And then the other take-home message that I can't stress enough is research where you're getting your stuff. Don't just get it at the gas station or what you say, TJ Maxx or whatever, Kohl's or whatever it's called. Get it from a reliable place that has testing. It makes all the difference in the world.
Dena, I know CBD, CBG, we talked about all this, but you guys make some cosmetic products too, and bath bombs. And I have to tell you, when I saw that they were making CBD bath soaks and bath bombs, I did roll my eyes up a little bit, thinking, okay, just a dubious novelty thing. Yeah, that's until I tried one of them. And surprisingly, they're extremely relaxing as far as things go. What other cosmetic and lifestyle products are you guys making at Buffalo there?
I want to go back to the bath bombs.
Well, I know you do.
They worked so well, and the R&D process for that was fun. They worked so well that we actually started making bath soaks so that you could actually control the dosage, not just for something to relax and have an experience, but we found, I can't even tell you how many people with arthritic type symptoms that needed to be able to dose it. So we converted, or we have additional products now that are soaks and a tablespoon, just a single tablespoon, which, by the way, you see all these products out here, it's how many milligrams and et cetera, so many ounces and so many milligrams, so many milliliters. Well, now I've decided that I need to start converting mine to tablespoons, because that's what people understand. So if I put a tablespoon of the soak in a bowl of hot water, put my hands in it for 15 minutes, I get 4 hours of relief. That's not me saying that, that's what they're telling me. So, and yes, we do other, cosmetic products. We incorporate essential oils. We have these space serums that we absolutely love, and we all ourselves take and use them. It makes the skin really soft and glows. So we do offer a few of those type of offerings as well.
Well, great. Robert, wrapping things up here. Been in the industry a long time, Robert. Huge cannabis advocate for a very long time. Been doing it in the state a little while. What's the future look like for medical cannabis overall and the state of Arkansas in particular? What do you think future's holding for us, sir?
The future for medical here in Arkansas?
Yeah, let's just hit that.
Anything more specific there? I mean, we're just now at a real mature market. We've been doing this for, I guess we planted at Natural State 3 years ago this month, I think. I don't know. Time's been really an interesting thing to say.
Yeah, you get older like me, it's a real problem, Robert. Right?
Because right when we were getting going is when the pandemic hit. Which has limited us having events like this and doing educational outreach. And so, this is our second time to do this. It was in August, was our last one. And we're going to continue to have more events like this. And I've been talking with Alan, and it looks like we're going to have, I hope this isn't too early to announce, but we'll be having one of these events in Northwest Arkansas later in the year. Oh, some cheers from up top. Are y'all from Fayetteville? So yeah, we're looking to take this show on the road and really connect more with patients and bring the industry together.
So it sounds like the future looks bright. That's how it looks to me here. We're going to end on that note there. Thanks so much for being the panel, for coming up here and giving your perspective on everything. Thanks everybody for talking with us today. Thanks, guys.